Hello and welcome to Grim Survival. I'm back. Today I'm going to talk about video games, and more specifically survival video games, and what you can and cannot learn from survival video games. And many years ago, which was about 2-3 years ago, I was into video games. I played a lot of them. I have a gaming computer I built for that reason. I could talk computer specs all day, graphics cards, RAM, processors, etc. I'm not going to do that on this video because it's completely pointless. I did realize at some point that video games were completely pointless, that it's just a waste of life, and everybody has their own point of view on it, but for me it was a complete waste of life and a waste of time. There's other things I could have been doing that were more important than wasting days and hours and on video games. So that being said, I don't do that anymore. Every now and then I'll play a game, but not like I used to. So, that being said, I used to play a couple of survival video games. H1Z1 and 7 Days to Die are the two that stand out in my mind. And the reason I'm making this video is I actually watched a video from Canadian Prepper probably 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, something like that. He was telling people about video games. And that's not what the video was about, but in the video he said that basically you can't learn anything from video games, and I agree to that to a certain point, but not completely. There are some useful things in the video games you can learn, very few. The need for a fire is one of them. In a survival situation, the need for a fire is probably going to be one of the higher priorities, depending on weather and climate, etc. But yeah, and the game's food procurement, you have to gather food and you have to gather water, and your main goal is to basically, these are zombie survival video games, so there's zombie hordes and things that come to kill you. The main goal of these games are to build a base and survive. I mean, that's basically the goal of the game, but it's never really that hard. So getting food and water are real easy. If you drink water that you haven't purified, your character gets sick for half a second, you lose a little bit of health that comes right back, a minute later. It's ridiculous. It really is. It really doesn't show you anything that could possibly happen in a survival situation, ever. Even if it was a zombie, if you believe zombies could possibly be a thing, even the game won't even tell you how to kill a zombie. I mean, it's really dumb. They shoot them in the head, right? Yeah, whatever. Anyway, there are some things you can learn from the game. One of them that stands out in my mind was one of the devices you could create, and I'm not sure which game it was, but one of the devices you can create to gather water was basically 4 posts around on each corner of a square box. It was basically 4 pallets tacked together that made a square, and there was a tarp hanging from each of the 4 posts, the corner of a tarp from each of the 4 posts, and the tarp was pushed down into the box, making basically a bowl out of the tarp. Assuming the tarp didn't have a hole in it and could hold water, that's basically what it was for. I believe it was called a dew collector in the game, although a rainwater collector could be made that way. So it was one of the devices that stand out from video games. But generally speaking, no, you can't learn a lot from survival video games. You can't really learn a lot from survival TV shows, such as The Walking Dead, or whatever the movies and such are on the similar subjects. There are some books, apocalyptic books or SHTF type books. Franklin Horton writes a good series, but you can learn certain things from these books, but it's still it's fantasy. I mean, nobody's ever been in that kind of situation, so you don't know. And what you can learn from these books are different techniques and different gadgets and devices that you can use. And I'm a big fan of technology, so if you can use technology to save your life, then use technology to save your life. If you can use your phone's GPS to get you out of a lost situation where you're way back in the woods, then use your phone's GPS. Don't die in the woods because you're against technology or anything. That would be like an Amish thing to do. That was a joke. Don't quote me on it. That was a joke. But anyway, technology is definitely key to survival in modern times. There are primitive methods of doing pretty much everything that we do, and it is good to learn those. But if there is an easier way, we're talking about survival here, not bushcraft. If there's an easier way, use it. I mean, You're going to use a Bic lighter over a ferro rod? I am. If the lighter lights and everything's not wet, and yeah, I'm using the lighter. If I have, a fire starter, I'm using a fire starter. If you see me out in the woods rubbing two sticks together, that's because I did something stupid. I lost my lighter, I lost my ferro rod. I did something stupid. Okay, so, yeah. But I think the biggest point, and not just from survival video games, but any video game I've ever played, really, the biggest thing that you can take from the video game is other people. In each one of these survival video games, they have an online mode where you go online and you try to survive the same way you do in a single player by yourself situation. And in the online, in the two particular games that I mentioned, the zombie survival games, online, they both shared a very common theme with other people. Everybody's goal in the online portion of all of these games, and it's not just these two games, but these two games stand out the most because they are survival based. But like I was saying, it's everybody's goal on the online version of these to loot other players' bases and take their stuff. That is the whole premise. Go there to their base if they're there, kill them, break in, take their stuff. That's what they do. I mean, that's what they do in pretty much every online where you have different players that have unlimited access to do anything they want to a fellow player. That's what happens. Even in shooter games, Call of Duty, people do what they call spawn camping. They'll just stand right where the person is coming into the world and they will shoot them. I don't know if it's still a thing. It's been years since I played these games. But it used to be a thing. And a common theme I find in every online video game that has open ability to openly mess with other people, that's all anybody does. And you're talking hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people that play these games, and the generations, of course, are younger and younger, and the younger the generation, it seems the less consideration they have for other players, not only in video games, but other people in a real life scenario. And you can see countless examples of this in the media, TV, and just in Walmart. Walk into a Walmart and watch how children react or act in front of public people, to their parents in public situations. It's just some of the things I see, I just have to walk away from, because I will say something. I have a bold personality. I'm a very, I guess in some ways, aggressive type of person, so I have nothing against walking up to you and telling you that I think you're an idiot, if I think so. If I see you doing something stupid, I will tell you. I mean, if you see me in a public place and I walk up to you and say, idiot, you're an idiot, you probably did something pretty stupid, because, yeah, most people won't point that out. I guess it's inhibitions and insecurities and blah, blah, blah. People that lack of social interaction. But anyway, back to the point of video games is I played several of them, and I tend to play either by myself online in an aspect, or with one or two other people, because I'm not that social of a person, so I don't have a lot of people that would ever, congregate with me in these types of places. But I have played with a few other people, and the common theme always was the same, that you would go offline and you'd come back and all your stuff was gone because somebody broke in and took it. Or if you were there, it had happened several times, somebody would come and kill you with, normally, because I only had myself or maybe two or three of us online at any given time, normally they would come in greater numbers. So we're talking 3 of us and 10 to 15 people coming to kill us in a video game. And this is basically how you're going to, and this is what I take from it, this is what I learned from it, is this is probably the same thing that's going to happen in a prolonged, without rule of law situation, SHTF situation, where law enforcement, the grid's gone, law enforcement does not exist, the government is either in hiding or in their own bunkers, or they have been annihilated. Any type of situation where there is no law anymore, you're going to see this throughout a point. People are going to eventually build bases, build forts, or take over buildings. They're going to have a place where they're congregating, because safety in numbers and all of that. I mean, if you have a building with 10 people in it with a wall around it that you can defend, you're better defended than a guy in his house. It's just common sense. And this is going to happen. People are going to build these kinds of places. They're going to have their forts, as you will. And other people are going to come and notice that it's there, and they're going to sit back and they're going to watch it, and they're going to see how many people are in there. They're going to see what kind of supplies you have, and if they have the numbers, the ability, and you have the things they want, they are going to attack you. They are going to start a war over it. They might try to sneak in and kill you in your sleep. I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So I guess what I take from survival video games is stockpile ammunition and learn to use your firearms. Learn to use other forms of self-defense. Take a self-defense class. Learn to, make a knife or use a knife. Knife fighting is pretty much a last resort in anybody's opinion, but if you know how to do it, you're more likely to come out of it still alive. In a knife fight, it's pretty well not likely, but you get my point. Learn the skills. The skills are needed. You need the skills immediately because we are looking at rough times ahead. If you haven't noticed, look around. But anyway, that is what I had to say for today, and this has been Grim Survival. I will give some kind of ridiculous outro like usual. What's up? Goodbye. See you later. Whatever. Anyway, have a good one.